Songtsen Gampo is probably one of the kings thought to bring Tibetan Buddhism as a religion here, and he used that palace as a summer palace with his Nepali and Chinese wives.
This is also actually where Buddhism got its foothold in Tibet. The Samye Monastery is nearby, and that's the first Buddhist monastery in all of Tibet.
And today we are going to go look at some of the Tibetan king burial grounds.
There's also a lot of evidence of the Bun religion, which is the religion that predates Buddhism. There's still traces of it in modern-day Tibet, but I guess it's pretty rare. The Yambulagong Palace, which is now a monastery.
Climbed up a hill, and the view here is simply astounding. And I'm scared of heights, and it's just yet another example here in Tibet of how when you're pushed to your limit, you are rewarded so greatly. So we are almost at the top of the Yambulagong Palace, and a little bit out of breath. And as with everything here in Tibet, we're finding it takes a little bit of effort, either long bus rides, out of breath hikes, and then something spectacular is usually right around the corner.
This is the lowest altitude we've been at so far, which is still higher than the highest altitude I've been at before. And talking gets to be a bit of a hassle after a little climb. We did come up from all the way down there though, so give me a little credit.
While we were inside the palace, I had kind of a rare moment for me. I had taken a picture, which we paid for permission to do, and the monks saw my digital camera and came running over to sort of look at all the images I had taken of their palace, and it was kind of an interesting exchange to have them standing so close to me, and I am so very interested in their culture, and it was a nice feeling to have them interested in my little gadget. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing or another bad Western influence coming in here, I don't know. But I was just really touched by their interest and so grateful to have that close proximity to something so neat and interesting here.
This temple had a much more sort of cozy feel. It was very small and dark and very nice inside, and it was really comfortable in there and felt very at ease. And the tiny main room was just filled with little things to look at: statues, drums, prayer books, all kinds of stuff just crammed in there, and I liked it a lot. I think I got some new decorating ideas for my living room, which my roommate's going to be just thrilled about.
To Tandrik Monastery in the Yarling River Valley. It's actually thought to be one of the Buddhist monasteries that was built during the reign of Songtsen Gampo.
In their mythology, it's one of the monasteries that pins down a giant demoness that covers most of Tibet. And this one in particular pins down her shoulder to the ground so she can't get up and wreak havoc.
When we went into Tandrik Monastery, it felt a lot like a carnival funhouse. Each of the rooms was lit by yak butter candles, and they cast an eerie glow across the statues and Buddha images within. The rooms also had protector deities, and sometimes in the dark room you'd sometimes jump when you finally saw one of those scary faces looking down on you.
My favorite part of the Tandrik Monastery was when we were upstairs. There were a couple of monks actually in a small room, and they were doing their chanting, singing of their prayers, and it was really beautiful to listen to. The Tibetan language is just very nice in general, and then when they're singing, chanting it, they had a really nice rhythmic style, and it was kind of hypnotic. It would be really, really nice, soothing background music. Tandrik's claim to fame is its thangka, which is extremely famous. It's a sort of tapestry art. And the amazing thing about it is it's made out of 29,000 pearls that are woven into a single image.
While we were there, we saw a monk that was making tsampa, which is a Tibetan bread product, but he was actually making it in a huge bowl, and thank goodness he didn't have to eat it because he was making it to make statues. The other thing we saw at Chandrak Monastery was gigantic prayer wheels and also a row of small prayer wheels, and it's thought to be good luck if you actually spin those. So Moj and I took a turn at spinning the prayer wheels, and hopefully we will have good luck for the rest of our trip here in Tibet.
After the Chandrak Monastery, we also went down into Chongye Valley to see the burial mounds, one of which we're actually sitting on top of right now. They're so large that I thought it was actually a natural hill, but apparently it's a man-made burial ground. Somewhere underneath me is the remains of Tsongtsen Gampo, one of the very first kings of Tibet.
He actually had 2 wives, one Chinese and one Nepali, and they were thought to influence his decision. Part of the reason I like this particular burial ground is because it's one of the few places where Tsongtsen Gampo's wives had statues next to himself, so it was cool to see some female imagery here.
We had a very full day today here in Shan'an, or Loka, depending on whether you're going for the Chinese or the Tibetan. First we went to Yambalagang Temple, although now it's a monastery, not a temple. And having been to a few different monasteries now, I think that Yambalagang might actually be my favorite that we've seen so far. It had a really cozy, homey feel to it.
One of the things I have learned while here is that there are 5 sects of Tibetan Buddhism, and the Dalai Lama is part of the Yellow sect, and that's only 1 in 5, so there are a good chunk of Tibetans that may or may not be as interested in his political freedom than others. So it's just kind of a different perspective here in Tibet than what I hear stateside, and definitely something worth learning while I was here.
Today we are at Samye Monastery, and we timed our arrival pretty well. As we came in, they were blowing horns on the roof of the monastery. And eventually a procession came along, and it took us a while to figure out what was going on, but the monks were being called into some sort of chanting and prayer ceremony. And then there was a more important looking monk, and that shows my relative ignorance about what was going on, but he had a big yellow hat and was seeming to tell some sort of story.
I'm not exactly sure how long we spent watching the monks chanting and praying. It's sort of lost sense of time in there. After a while, we left the main room and then finally got to start exploring the actual monastery itself. It's a pretty big place, and the building itself, the main building, is pretty impressive. It's very palatial, and I think I read in the book that it covers actually 3 different styles of architecture, going from Tibetan, Chinese, and even Indian. That comes from, apparently, when this all started, they brought in Chinese and Indian scholars, I guess, to help them interpret and translate all the ancient Buddhist scripts.
Some of the other stuff I noticed here, there's a lot more pilgrims than at the other monasteries that we've been at. They're pretty interested in checking out the monastery and looking around at different things. This would be a good example.